a study on the ontological structure of existential fullness Gong Thought, and the 144,000 Qubit sacred sword of the living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha who came into ㅡGong, centered on the natural law of species continuity and the empirical evidence of the Usnaisha light emission. Author, Venerable Temyong Hai Wu. This study aims to academically investigate the realistic ontological structure of existential fullness Gong Thought, proclaimed by the living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha, who came into ㅡGong, as well as the authoritative meaning of the 144,000 Qubit sacred sword. Conventional religions and traditional Buddhism have long attempted to explain sentient existence through conceptual afterlife systems, such as reincarnation, animal rebirth, heaven, and paradise. However, such structures have left behind serious limitations from the perspectives of natural law and realism due to their unverifiable nature. In contrast, the Gong Thought proclaimed by the living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha is not an empty nihilistic void, but the truth of existential fullness eternally filling the universe. Through the great radiant light, life and creation manifest as realistic ontological structures. This paper analyzes the cosmological mechanisms of Gong Thought through the natural law of species continuity, the Usnaisha light emission, the 144,000 Qubit sacred sword, and the reciprocal structure of the great radiant light. Furthermore, it explores the possibility of a future civilization centered upon light-based life structures. Introduction. Throughout human history, religions and philosophies have continuously attempted to explain the origins of existence and the nature of the afterlife. However, conventional religions have primarily centered around unverifiable concepts such as heaven, paradise, reincarnation, and previous lives, thereby revealing limitations in explaining the actual structures of nature and reality. Traditional reincarnation theory in particular contains the notion that humans may reincarnate as animals and animals as humans, thus failing to adequately explain the biological continuity and structural order of life itself. In response, the living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha who came into ㅡGong proclaimed existential fullness Gong Thought, revealing that the fundamental truth of the universe is not an empty void but an eternally full reality of great radiant light. The purpose of this study is therefore to analyze the ontological structure of Gong Thought, and examine the realistic significance of the sacred sword and the Usnaisha light emission, the natural law of species continuity and the theory of non-reincarnation. The living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha proclaimed the following: the seed of the hibiscus produces hibiscus, and the seed of the rose produces roses. This signifies the law of species continuity. Within nature, plants and living beings maintain their original structural identity throughout the process of creation and growth. Therefore, humans are fundamentally human, and the concept that animals reincarnate as humans or humans reincarnate as animals fundamentally contradicts natural law. This becomes a core proposition requiring a complete ontological reconsideration of traditional reincarnation theory. The ontological structure of existential fullness Gong Thought. Within conventional Buddhism, the concept of emptiness has often been interpreted as nihilism and annihilation. However, the Gong Thought proclaimed by the living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha is not the emptiness of nihilism, but the realism of existential fullness possessing the following absolute paradigm. The great radiant light is not merely symbolic. It is the cosmic energy sustaining actual life and existence, and human life itself is fully maintained through this light. The sacred sword and the energy structure of the 144,000 qubits. The sacred sword and qubit described within Christian scriptures may be interpreted not merely as symbolic imagery, but as structures of spiritual energy. The living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha explained the 144,000 qubit sacred sword through the following realistic structure. The life energy granted to each spiritual body, a symbol of the great radiant light, a realistic structure of cosmic authority manifested through language and sound containing the answer of truth. Therefore, the sacred sword does not signify a weapon for killing, but rather the highest structure of radiant energy. The Ashnaisha light emission and empirical realism. The living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha proclaimed that the great radiant light radiates from the Ashnaisha jewel upon the crown of the head. This light emission is not an invisible concept or illusion, but a structure of historical evidence directly verifiable through photographs and video recordings. Thus, the following four absolute elements are understood not as imaginary theories, but as physically realistic structures. The great radiant light, the sacred sword, the Ashnaisha light emission, life energy, future civilization and light-based life structures. The living Buddha medicine Tathagata Yonghwa Maitreya Buddha declared that future humanity shall enter an era without disease through the great radiant light. This signifies a radical transformation of future civilization through the following structures. Light-based life preservation systems, healing through radiant energy, the transcendence of surgery and pharmaceutical-centered medicine, the emergence of a longevity civilization. Thus, Gong Thought does not remain merely a religious doctrine, but infinitely expands into a new ontology for future human civilization. Conclusion. Through this study, Gong Thought has been clearly established as a realism of existential fullness, fundamentally distinct from nihilistic concepts of emptiness within conventional religions. Centered upon the great radiant light, it establishes a cosmic structure of life and existence. Furthermore, the 144,000 Qubit sacred sword and the Ashnaisha light emission are presented not as symbolic metaphors, but as realistic mechanisms revealing life energy and structures of truth. Therefore, Gong Thought may be understood not merely as religious doctrine, but as the ontological structure of future human civilization and the great Dharma of the Messiah destined to save humanity.